to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing Ghostbusters 2016. Let's call it, Schnars. Will that make you feel better, buddy?
Is that, we're going to add 2016 to the end?
Yeah. I'm the editor-in-chief over at bloodygoodhorror.com, staying hopefully tonight for the entire episode. Joining me tonight, first up, he builds Bloody Good Horror with his magical web beaver hands, and he's still late to the show even though he now works from home. His name is Mark.
I feel like I was right on time.
Mr. J. Schnars has a bone to pick with you, Mark.
The show starts whenever Mark shows up.
Yeah,
That's right.
He's the
Goddamn
diva.
right.
He's the diva.
And it still continues after Eric leaves.
Yeah. Next up on the show, Lady Ghostbuster. She also does the tweet with BGHs on the site. Her name is Sophie.
Hey, everybody.
Next up on the show, he writes horror fiction. He hosts the Instamatic, which is a BGH spinoff. Recently cut his hair. What else can we tell you about this guy? He vape. Do you still vape?
I do.
All right. Nice. His name is Casey. Oh, you got a sick rig there, bro.
I got a new rig.
Nice. Ripping sick clouds. I like it. And last, but certainly not least here on the show tonight, he's the business editor at bloodygoodhorror.com. Business manager. You can edit the business too. That's fine. He is coming to you tonight from Manhattan, New York, and his name is John Schnars.
Eric, you'd be happy to know that I served jury duty today in Manhattan.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Civic duties, my friend.
You were allowed to do that? Surprised.
What do you mean allowed?
I don't know.
I've lived in the city for 11 years. They force you at a certain
Use
point.
yourself for ties to lizard people.
I tried my best.
So a momentous thing happened this weekend. The Schnarses and their offspring came through Boston and had lunch, breakfast with the Newells and our offspring. It was a meeting of the minds.
We exactly bringing the offsprings together as we do.
It was pretty awesome.
It was lovely.
It was fun.
They looked very unhappy to see each other in that picture that Eric posted.
Yeah.
They actually did fine. Lily slept most of the breakfast. Neither of my children slept, I don't think. Not at all.
Ever.
Yeah. So.
Are you trying to brag about it?
No. It's the reverse is what you brag about. But no, it was a good time. It was a delicious meal.
Yeah, it was sweet. I got to chow down on some corned beef hash. You know.
It was the most strangers that had ever stopped to say something to me about my children in one space.
They're super friendly in there. Yeah.
All
Is
of
that good or bad?
all of the waitresses came over, and so they were very kind of like, I don't know if they were all like of grandmother age, but they kind of had that quality of them about them.
They were matronly, let's say.
I was like really trying to stay away
Careful.
from it. But it was very much like, oh my God, look at all these babies, you know. It was
So, you know what came up to over breakfast and like had me laughing, and I was like, how did I not know that? And then as I was thinking over it, I'm convinced I did actually know, I just 100% forgot.
Mhm.
But either way, I feel like it's a good time to remind everybody of two things. One, John Schnars has an MBA.
Yes, that is correct.
Which makes sense. He is the business manager, and you would want your business manager to have an MBA.
You have to have an MBA to run the business of Bloody Good Horror, such as it is.
It also is just so it's just so perfect with the Schnars character I've created that I can't believe like I forgot about it. And two, John, who else went to the school where you got your MBA?
The CEO of Johnson & Johnson. I forget his name.
That wasn't the one.
Lovely,
Johnson. His
lovely
name was
gentleman.
probably Johnson.
Yeah. I think the CEO of Home Depot, maybe one of the other. But yeah. Eric is reaching for a certain candidate for president. One Donald J. Trump.
Ooh.
I believe Ivanka and Donald Trump Jr. also are both Wharton grads.
Oh, you mean Patrick Bateman?
Did you just admit to being Donald Trump Jr.?
Donald Trump Jr. and I are
Listen,
alumni.
Do you have
together.
some
Were they
pomade?
Were they in Balls and Shaft with you?
Yeah. Do you have some pomade back there? If you slick your hair back, you'd look just
Oh
like
my
him.
god! Like, does he think that's a good look? I mean, I guess you could say the
He
same
has
for his dad, but like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Look who his role models are for
Yeah.
hair.
yeah.
Anyway,
that's true.
not to get off on a political tangent, but I just wanted to say, like, literally, I started shouting over the breakfast table, like, how did I not know that? And
Yeah.
then, like, today I was thinking about it. I'm like, I probably knew that and just
Wait a
forgot.
second. Didn't you get your MBA like while the show was a thing?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was like last
Like
year.
every week you got on and you're like, I'm doing so much work. I want to kill myself like every week.
Yeah.
So in
that
an
We
was-
had to like go overseas for classes.
In
That
an
is correct.
unrelated
Casey,
story,
thank
Mark,
you
I've
for
been
remembering.
having, in an unrelated
you-
story, I've been having some memory problems lately.
So you probably started every show for 2 years. Boy, getting this MBA sure is hard. And Eric
Yeah.
just totally let that go.
Yeah. Well, and
You got it right.
Sophie will one day be a alumnus with me, at least from our parent
From Penn.
school, from the University of
Wow,
Pennsylvania.
Fancy.
We will
Next
both have
April.
degrees. There you
I
go.
could have swore you said Pez.
Pez.
The University
Also
of
fine.
University of
Pez.
Pennsylvania.
Well, I thought you said Pennsylvania, so I think we're all
Pennsylvania.
pants.
All right. We probably got a lot to talk about this movie, but I do have actually a couple things I want to cover. First off, quick Pokemon Go update. Who is still playing?
Not me.
I loaded it up today because we were talking about it on an email and caught a couple pokes. I poked a couple
Nice.
pokes.
What was I
Caught me
saying?
out.
Different,
today.
it's a different app, I think, John.
I was just saying to Schnars, my mind crashed today as I was catching myself a Jigglypuff for the first time. So
Did you
I
get
think
it or
I
did you
no,
not?
for a
no.
while, I
If it crashes before the ball like clicks and like goes to the screen, then you don't get it.
Yeah, no, I know
Yeah.
how it works. I'm aware of the crash mechanics of Go
But I'm pretty
Pokemon.
excited
You know you
that-
have a great game on your hands.
I'm
If
pretty-
it crashes.
Yeah.
I'm
When
pretty
players
excited.
have to
I'm,
debate the crashing nature.
I'm going to New York this weekend, so I'm hoping to like catch some stuff I haven't seen yet. So I'm still pretty into it. I like it.
Might be able to catch some real Pokemon in the woods.
I mean, I'm doing a lot of walking anyway with the dog, so it's just kind of like
It's
something
true.
else.
When I was off work when the game came out, I was doing it constantly because I'd be walking around. I'd be
Yeah.
taking my kid to the park. He's in a stroller. I'm just like watching my phone. Super safe. So
Great
Casey,
parenting.
Casey, you're still playing, I assume.
Oh yeah.
Are you still
I
playing
caught
that
the out
Star?
today, so
Nice. Are you still playing that Star Wars game we were playing?
I actually just haven't been. It's been like a week since I paid attention to it.
You know, it's funny. I keep getting push notifications from that game, being like, "Hey, you still playing Pokemon? You want to come?
They've added raids.
Want to come play this game a little bit, maybe?
Actually, they've added guilds and raids.
Hey, now
Oh
you can
my
catch
God.
Star Wars characters in your backyard."
Yeah.
All right, that's going on. Schnars, T Public sale.
Yes, TeePublic, the home of the Bloody Good Horror T-shirt store, I guess we would say.
Empire.
Yeah, Empire. No, I mean for folks who have obviously been with the show a little while, we have a couple shirts. We released a new one almost a year ago. A little hint there at things to come. But so we have a shirt from last year. We have our sort of, I think, this shirt from 2014, and then we actually also picked out like a bunch of other shirts that we just thought were cool that other designers put together. You can find those all. The easiest way is just go to bloodygoodhorror.com, and there's the button either says shop or t-shirt. I can't remember, but you'll figure it out when you get there. But the important news is that TeePublic is having a site-wide sale, and so if you've been thinking about buying yourself a shirt, a sweatshirt, a V-neck tee.
It's a really good sale too.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
they knock the prices down. It's like normally $20 or something, and they're down to like 14 for a T-shirt.
They're
the
very-
sweatshirts are like way down. It's pretty nice.
They're super nice T-shirts too, and what I like about them is like it's a little bit of like an athletic fit, but not extreme. It's not like the ones where your nipples are popping out. And yes, Mark, that is a problem for me.
I beg to differ. I got a small, and I'm like.
Oh, see, I got
hulking
a
out of that shirt.
I got a
Well,
We
medium.
got
It's like
zipper hoodies now.
so. Think about it this way: I'm like 5'3". I got a medium, and it's like perfectly snug on me. So order accordingly.
There you go. I think I sent you a
So I
women's
think don't
medium,
get a
actually.
small.
so-
Actually, is really the only. Just don't get. A small.
It fits my bosoms perfectly.
a small is probably for a child. But yeah, no, that I agree. I mean, we've had these shirts, like I said, for about a year, and several washings later, it's good quality. It's better quality. We've worked with some other sites in the past, and I am pleased with where we are with
I was
TeePublic,
I was Instagramming last week in my picture of all my 20 years of Bloody Good Horror shirts laid out. It's like 17 years, I guess. 16
I had never
years.
seen the original one. That is
Nice. Bloody Good
pretty
Horror
nice.
page, baby.
Yeah.
That was a professional. Like with my own money, we hired an actual artist to do that. He's still doing artisting stuff.
Wow. All right, we should call him
As
up, see
opposed
if
to
he'll
the
do one
people
for
that we
free.
paid
Dude.
to do all the other designs for our
That would be
podcast
amazing if we got
awards.
the original artist to do the anniversary shirt.
Just hack.
The important question here, because I know I've seen them on there. Did you guys order Bloody Good Horror onesies yet?
No, we did
Oh
not.
no.
Whoa.
I did
get
buy.
on it.
I bought. So one of my favorite things on the TeePublic site now is a pullover hoodie. It's like thin, like it's like perfect like thickness. And I got a bright red one with our new logo on it. It's awesome.
Remember when we had skate decks? Remember that?
Vaguely.
I do.
I will say I left one shirt out of my picture. So I had the white shirt with the black and red like faded logo or whatever, but I have that same logo with the guys coming up out of the ground in the full color shirt that we did also. I want to say that was Cafe Press.
We've gone through a lot of various super
We've used-
exciting T-shirt.
Everyone
vendors over
used-
the
We've
has
years.
used some vendors.
Everyone has used Cafe Press at some point. It's been around a long time.
It's where I get all my finest mugs.
So last week I had to bail on the show. I had to go deal with some shit. Everyone else took over. I did manage to like cobble together and edit it. It actually came together like pretty clean.
You know, it's funny.
You're welcome.
Had we not mentioned it and had you not used the same bumper twice, it would have been perfect.
I used the same bumper.
Yeah, Adrian Barbeau
Oh.
bot.
Yeah, but I mixed that stuff up, so you know.
It was fantastic.
Here's my review. You guys did an awesome job. Very
Thank
nice.
you.
One little thing
Uh-oh.
is
I was like, that's the nicest thing Eric's ever said to us.
I think
wait.
that it just proves that you need at least one member of the Smile Squad on at all times. That's, of course, for people who don't know, me and Joe, because we're happy and we like things. I think you guys let Schnars run away with his anger a little bit. What I realize is that him and I have
Wait, what
him and I
world-
have a
in what
yin and a
world-
yang thing where you guys just let him get angry about how bad the movie was. Whereas, like, I might have pointed out how funny it was when that guy's butt was hanging out, which I did when I showed up on the show finally.
No, that's just you jealous because that's your favorite Schnars and you missed it.
No, I don't like when he gets real mad. I like Schnars when he's like this and he's just laughing.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around you being a part of the Smile Squad.
Were you
That's-
not? No,
Please
listen.
make
Were
us
you
go
not
back to
there for
that.
that show, Mark? Maybe you were late that time and you didn't show
I don't
up.
even know anymore. Was it when John was getting his MBA?
Probably. Yeah.
In any event, listen. We literally had 10 seconds to prepare how we were going to handle the show when you disappeared.
Listen, the conversation was great. I just like I don't like hearing my baby get mad like that. You know.
I did get worked up. I
You got
worked
real
up.
mad. It was like
Hey, baby, man.
it was like we were talking about Brett Ratner for a few minutes, like that
Are you
level.
big mad or little mad?
It basically was a
Yeah.
Brett Ratner movie. It was of that caliber.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
No, it was a good listen. I went through.
good times.
I
good
like that
times.
stupid ball. I'm sorry, it was funny. It talked and stuff. It was cute.
Let's just move on. So many issues with the ball. Just don't.
Very quickly, we're all watching Stranger Things. Yes? Question mark.
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
not had a chance to watch it yet, but I am.
I'm
Interested.
3 episodes
I've already
in.
watched it all.
I'm 3 episodes in. The music is amazing. It's got some like perturbator type stuff. It might even be that. I
Oh
don't know.
yes, it's so good.
Matthew Modine, creepy, very creepy. Great characterization, like pretty decent kid actors. My wife tried watching with me. She bowed out after about one episode, but I'm kind of hammering through, so it's highly recommended. And
So-
Winona Ryder is like terrifyingly good at playing somebody who is a total train wreck.
Yeah.
Which
She's just a good actress. I mean,
She
that's
is.
that's my review of Winona Ryder. She doesn't always get like great parts, but I
Yeah.
really think she's really good.
like she's real good as like kind of white, trashy, just like
Well, it
end
sounds
of
like
a
she
rope.
finally got over that cold she had all through the 80s and 90s, too.
What?
The Coke nose.
Oh.
you know a movie of hers I always liked, Reality Bites.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Like a quintessential 90s movie right there.
Uh,
But yeah,
I
she
think so,
kind
but
of steals the
this isn't
show.
I was gonna say this isn't a spoiler, but Stranger Things related. I gotta put out my argument that the chubby kid with the curly hair and missing the front teeth is like the best thing on there.
Sort of. Yeah, it's a little much for me.
Oh.
I've seen the pilot, and he seems perfectly cast.
I actually think that the black kid is the best character in the show because he's like the only person with common sense in the whole show, and he just tells everybody like it is. He's like, no, that's a stupid idea. Why would we do that? It's a monster.
Where did these guys come from? Like, I'm not familiar. I guess they did Wayward Pines, it looks like.
So that's on Fox. That's like I've never seen it, but it's sort of a fake Twin Peaksy thing with with what the hell's that guy?
It's way different than Twin Peaks. It's all right.
Matt something, but it's like supernaturally, right?
It had a very promising start.
It's more sci-fi than supernaturally.
Okay.
Yeah, they had one feature called Hidden, which I guess maybe we have a review on the site. Maybe Mark knows, but it looks like it's a horror thing.
Yeah.
In any event, I am very interested to watch it, and I'm glad that people are enjoying it.
One bit of trivia I read about this with I think they're the Duffer Brothers. Is that right?
Yeah.
Something like that. They,
Yes.
I was reading about that, which as we binge watched the whole show in one day. But I was reading about how originally they wanted to call this show Montauk and set it in coastal town in like Jersey, Montauk,
that would
New
be
Jersey,
New York.
Because the New
thought it
York,
was
but
in
they
Jersey.
were huge Jaws fans. I'm from Indiana. I don't know coastal towns. But they're huge Jaws fans, and so they were kind of going with that atmosphere when they first started putting this thing together, which it didn't end up working out because of money and stuff like that. It would cost to shoot in a coastal town, but if you watch that show, check out the backgrounds. There's some good Jaws nods in there.
Yeah, I mean, literally, there's just a Jaws poster in Winona Ryder's room. I thought Montauk was in New Jersey, John.
No, it's Long Island.
Oh,
it's like the
same thing.
It's not. I don't know if it's the furthest, but it's very far out on Long Island.
Would you say it's the further?
It's beyond the further even.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right, guys. Very nice. It is time to review Ghostbusters.
Could there be a female gremlin? Lipstick, boobies, bitch, you have me a little gremlin for JJ. I love it so much that it's not only in the movie, but it's definitely in the movie. There's no backsies on that one, no penny taxis. Yes, in the movie, done! That's why we need a woman in the writer's room. Next.
Hey, I'm Tommy Ricola, director of Dead Snow and Dead Snow 2, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back.
Man,
no backsies.
You should probably quit doing bumpers after that. I don't know if you're gonna find a better one.
That's one.
Oh man! And now that I actually have a mixing board, like when I originally cut it, that clip is way too low, but now I can just pot it up, Mark. You know.
Modern technology, 2016.
You know how we do. Hey, John Schnars.
Yes.
I heard a rumor that you have an MBA from the same school that Donald Trump went to. Is that true?
That is not just a rumor, my friend.
Did he graduate from Wharton though, or just go there?
No, he's a graduate.
Fun
they
fact,
actually like
Schnars
don't...
went to the same school in Ukraine that Melania went to.
Yeah.
John Ukraine.
That would be pretty good, actually. It's
Ukraine.
not well publicized by the university these days.
Yeah.
They don't. He's not like most schools. If you had a president, they would be like, yes.
They bumped Trump from the brochure and they put Schnars on there.
If they've asked, I'm still.
That's true. My first day, I walked by Wharton and they were like, "Have you heard of John Schnars?"
Yeah.
Did they teach you words there?
More number things. Some made up words, actually. That's what an MBA is mostly about.
Give me a made up business word.
I can't. I'm not gonna be able to do it off the top of my head.
Profits.
Profits. Yeah.
Anyway, John.
ROI.
Debit.
Anyway, John. The point being that your fancy highfalutin education has benefited Bloody Good Horror by the fact that you bring us every week a word of the day. So please do just that. What you got?
Today's word, Eric, is ionization. Ionization is the process by which an atom or molecule acquires a negative or positive charge by gaining or losing electrons to form ions, often in conjunction with other chemical changes. So, ionization, ion comes from the I think it's Greek. It's actually the Greek word for go, I believe. Ionization. There's lots of, so where this comes from, Ghostbusters, I don't know if it was more than in the original, but there was definitely heavy use of sort of fake sciencey terms. Yeah. It was actually pretty excellent. We can get into it.
Which actually makes a lot of sense at that movie being made in a time post like Ghost Hunter shows.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, who my EVP recording? Who?
Well, they definitely had more total devices. There was actually like way more than you kind of get in the first Ghostbusters, but you even have a lot more sort of like talking about it. A lot of the film obviously sort of centers around the book that the two of the characters wrote together, that they then, one of them wants to disown and the other one still kind of embraces. And so, it's good times.
John, tell me what this movie is about.
It's funny. I hadn't heard anything about this movie before it was released, so I was really surprised.
Not a word, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, God, do I even have to do this? Ghostbusters is about a team of young women who busts ghosts in New York City.
There's some innovations in the plot, though.
No, there are. So, the original. I mean, I don't want to. Also, probably don't want to make it just about like how it's different from the original, but the sort of like central difference is that you have the Kristen Wiig character. I should probably look up everyone's like actual names in the movie. I remember Holtzman. That's basically the only one. But the Kristen Wiig character, she's kind of tried to go straight. That's been her thing. So she is trying to get tenure at Columbia in like the Department of Physics. Her boss is Tywin Lannister, which I thought was a nice.
No, I think you mean Sweet Brother Noonsy.
Yeah, true. But good move there. So yeah, you've got Gilbert. That's Aaron Gilbert, Kristen Wiig. And then so back in the day, she had kind of like come up as friends and then as academic sort of partners with Abby, played by Melissa McCarthy. And whereas Kristen Wiig has kind of gone straight, Melissa McCarthy is working at like Joe Smith's college in like, Flatbush, Queens or whatever.
It's Trump University.
Yeah, exactly. She's basically in the basement of Trump University, just doing whatever she wants, and like all this advanced sort of faux science, pseudoscientific ghost investigation. And she has a protege named Holtzman, played by Kate McKinnon. And they're kind of this like team that's trying to do all this ghost stuff that Kristen Wiig had been running away from. And Kristen Wiig is sort of forced back into their orbit when I think he's like the librarian of an old sort of family estate in New York City. It's not a real place. That's like the one thing that kind of like among some of the things that bug me about the New York stuff here. But they've seen a ghost and he goes to see Kristen Wiig, and so she then goes to see Melissa McCarthy, and they kind of all get like sucked back together. They actually see a real ghost when they go to investigate, and that then like puts them on this path of pulling Kristen Wiig back into ghost investigation, and also just becoming the Ghostbusters to kind of deal with this rising tide of ghosts in the city. They finally what they realize is that there is a guy who is using his own sort of fake sciencey nonsense to amplify spirits, and
science.
And he becomes the sort of main antagonist of the film.
All right, Mark.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of ghosts?
I ain't afraid of ghosts.
Okay, good. That's a good start. What did you think of this movie?
Oh man, I really liked it. I went and saw it on my 30th birthday, which is great.
Holy shit!
Really great way to celebrate turning 30. I didn't think it was perfect. I have some things that I can kind of call into question, but there's obviously, like as John alluded to, there's been a lot of discussion about this movie. Uh, from the time it was announced to like the first trailer to whatever, everyone seems to have thought that they had figured out exactly what kind of movie this was going to be. And I would say that, a couple days beforehand, I just sort of settled into this. Like, I like all the actresses in this movie. They're all really funny. I like Paul. I don't know how you, is it Paul Feig? Paul Feig?
I think it's Feig.
Yeah, I think it's Feig.
Paul Feig. I like him as a director. I've liked most of his movies. So, and this kind of falls exactly in line with that. I think it was really funny, really entertaining. Not a ton of substance to speak of, really, but like, in comparison to, I sort of alluded to this last week, like when you're going to the movies in the summer, you kind of just want to watch something fun and you just enjoy yourself. And with that in mind, this was everything that Independence Day was not, basically, for me.
Yeah. Sophie.
So I have a lot of feelings about this movie. I just rewatched the original and the sequel. I had actually never seen the sequel before until about a week ago.
What?
In order to prepare, yeah. Listen, I'm the baby of the group. It was not really relevant anymore when I was growing up.
Sophie, in the role of our resident young tonight.
Yeah, the youngin. I will carry the millennial and the lady crowd. Yeah, so I went into this pretty enthusiastically. I think, like Mark said, I think I was a little bit nervous. I think maybe Eric alluded to this in one of the earlier episodes. The idea that there has been so much backlash against this movie that I have been backlashing against, that I was really afraid that if the movie sucked, I wouldn't really know what to say. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I think we'll probably get into this, but I thought that they really did a nice job of working in their own kind of response to people who were being negative. There were a lot of the lines that the ladies said that felt like they were very pointedly directed at people who have been shitting on the movie before it came out. And I might be the only one who felt this way, but I thought that having the villain be kind of a really bland, normal, kind of like average white dude was a fantastic choice.
There certainly was an odd bit of symmetry there, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think he even has a line where they're trying to kind of convince him that the world is worth not destroying. And he says to them, well, you've all lived a life where you got to be respected and treated like the human beings that you are. And that just felt very resonant in terms of what everything that's been happening with this movie before it came out. So I thought it was fantastic.
I didn't even catch like how pointed that, like I picked up on.
I don't even know if it was intentional, but it certainly kind of, I mean, it
kind of had to be like you.
Yeah.
Right.
There's almost no way you can, because the further they push that and like the more that it was.
I mean, that's when they get into the psychology of trolls. That's always what it is, right? Just like they feel like unaccepted and unloved, and
like he didn't get everything he was supposed to have gotten out of. I think my takeaway from this movie was I saw it with my boyfriend and my younger brother and sister, and when the movie ended, the whole ride home, my sister and I were just kind of saying, and I mean, this is going to sound really ridiculous. My sister and I were just saying, I didn't know movies could make me feel that way, because I haven't seen a movie that was made for women where it wasn't pandering to women. And I feel like that, I don't know if I can overstate how awesome that was.
Right, and that's something, frankly, that like none of us can truly relate to. You know what I mean? Like, because we've just always been able to have those experiences. Casey.
I had a blast. Put it plain and simple. Were there some problems with it? Sure, there were some, a couple problems that I had with it. But probably my biggest thing, like the final fight scene in this movie, I thought was fantastic. I love the CGI. I love the ghosts and everything. Without going into details, it did reach a point where they kind of felt like they all turned into ninjas and it went a little over the top. Did it spoil it for me? Not at all. Did it have anything to do with them being ladies? Not at all. It would have been just as over the top if it was all guys. It was, other than that, though, this movie is a blast from beginning to end. I thought it was hilarious. I loved the jokes. I thought the characters were great. I thought the characters all worked great together. I was really relieved after the first trailer to see that they steered away from a lot of the stereotypes and stuff that looked like they were kind of aiming for. It looks like they were going heavy-handed with stuff in that trailer. I think we can all admit it was not a very good trailer.
I don't think any of the trailers were great. Yeah.
Yeah, but once you got into the movie, it wasn't like that at all. So it was really good because a lot of the characters, I mean, I think Kate McKinnon stole the show. She was hilarious. I think she's hilarious anyways. At this point in like SNL history, because we got a lot of SNL fan people here on the show, I think she's surpassed Kristen Wiig for me as far as hilarity goes. So I was already sucked into Kate McKinnon anyways, so I was already looking forward to her. At the same time, you could argue that her character was fairly thin. Wasn't as fleshed out as like Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig. Even Patty, they didn't give her a whole lot of backstory and stuff. But it's okay. We got enough backstory with everybody else. It probably would have bogged it down if they would have spent too much time on it.
Yeah, I mean,
there's going to be sequels. They can flesh it out.
It's a movie about, I don't know. It's not like a character-driven drama, right? Like it's a kind of like situational comedy kind of a thing. And your main character, really, in a lot of ways, is Kristen Wiig, and she actually is pretty decently fleshed out. They give her, I think, enough of a background to give you a little bit of a hook there.
Yeah, you're totally right.
It's a big cast too. Like they're,
Yeah, and it's a lot of big personalities in this cast too.
Yeah.
So with that in mind too, as big as some of these stars are, these ladies are all they're all pretty big stars. Leslie Jones is not quite the same stature as the rest of them yet, but she's climbing there. She's getting there. She's just, come to it a little bit later than they have. That's a lot of personality on screen for a four-person ensemble, and they handled it really well. They balanced it well.
Yeah.
Nobody was out like stepping on people's toes.
John.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I went into this, and by the time it actually came out, there had just been so much pre-conversation and so much back and forth, and the just completely asinine people on the internet who refuse to even allow that this might be a movie that somebody else would want to see, let alone they might enjoy. I mean, that I think it had a really high bar to clear. I was hopeful, and I really love the original Ghostbusters. I really love the sequel. I was into all the shit back in the day when we were kids, and I still really like this movie a lot too. I think the interesting thing, but I mean, it's funny because I don't want to talk about how it's like they did Ghostbusters with women, but it is actually a really important decision that they made. And I think Sophie's point about the fact that and I was just talking to my wife about it beforehand, because I saw it Sunday after we got home from our lovely dinner with the Newells or lunch with the Newells. And so she and I haven't even really had a chance to kind of talk about it, but I described it as it's actually probably one of the most feminist films I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's hard to even describe why, because it's just a regular movie that just happens to just have women characters. I mean, one of the most interesting things to me is there's very few actual relationships that aren't female to female relationships, and friendships and working female to female. There's one male character, really.
Which is the opposite of the way a lot of normal movies are, you know what I mean? Where you might have one female character.
I would actually say all the movies. That's the thing.
And I think a lot of people it's not just that they took characters and they just happen to be female. Kristen, their femaleness plays into the characters in interesting ways. Kristen Wiig's character is a female trying to make her way in this very male-dominated kind of academic setting. And that kind of informs the way her character is. She's trying to be accepted in this place that it's really difficult for her. You know what I mean?
And not only that, but they managed to kind of have these four main characters that are women, and yet really them being women isn't commented on. There are not really any jokes about how they're women, and that's funny because they're women, and it's really, I don't know. They do a really good job of really not acknowledging that they're female characters. They're just people.
Yeah, it's not even a point of conversation.
Women scientists will all be.
Yeah. They didn't scream, "Hey, it's ladies!"
No, and as
that wasn't the name of the movie. Hey, it's ladies.
As sad as it is, that little act is pretty revolutionary, and I think what's pretty important about this film. I like everybody involved with this. I like Paul Feig a lot. I am I was, not to go all hipstery on you, Schnars, but
Oh god,
I
I
used
can't
to.
wait. I can't wait to hear where this goes.
I have always watched and liked SNL. Like even in the seasons where nobody was watching and everybody was complaining, like I've always found people to latch onto that I really liked. And like I remember in the early days, really liking Kristen Wiig, and like was really happy when she started finding a wider audience. I think that she still gets a lot of hate for some reason, which is very strange to me. But to see her in this film, like essentially playing a kind of straight role, like a funny straight role, but she's really like the lead of this movie was a really neat thing.
Well, it's weird that her and Melissa McCarthy are both playing like pretty straight.
Like
roles.
Melissa McCarthy is another one that gets hate that shouldn't. Like she's really funny. Kate McKinnon, like I was saying, it's hilarious to me that people are like surprised how funny Kate McKinnon is in this movie because she has been murdering it on SNL for like a good 6
Pretty
years
consistently.
now. You know, Leslie Jones is funny. I think it was nice to see her when you watch her on SNL. You can tell she doesn't have a lot of experience yet in that live thing, and so sometimes she looks a little lost. But like in this setting where it's like scripted and directed and acted, like she's really good. Like her comedic timing is on. It's an interesting character in the mix. Like I have little things that I might have changed here and there. I think that I would have liked to see a little bit more of some kind of iconic baddie at some point to latch onto. I think that we're almost there with ideas, but it's just not like that was such a huge part of those old films that when you think back and you're like, oh, this thing or this thing.
You wanted to see Janusz come back.
Well, yeah, Janusz.
It'd be pretty sweet.
I mean, this guy basically was Janusz, right?
Return
like,
of the Janusz.
He looked pretty similar.
Yeah. But you know, so like I really enjoyed it. I know Sophie gave it like a really glowing review. I think that I kind of would have loved to see this be an R-rated movie because I feel like these are all people who work better in a filthy environment. And it felt oddly at times like it was holding back. But when I really think about it, like logically, why would you make this movie R? Because it's got such a crossover appeal with younger audiences. It would be crazy. But
the ratings kind of been...
even outside of the money side of it, I think it's really important that kids get to see a movie like this. And I feel like that I'm sure that the decision was made for capitalistic reasons, but I think that the idea that little kids can go and watch this, like so my sister works at a summer camp, and this week had 3 different girl campers draw themselves as Ghostbusters, which like would not have happened before this movie.
That's awesome. Like, and if I'm thinking of it from the point of view of like bringing my kid to it, I maybe could have done without the queef joke that they put in there. Neither here nor there.
It was.
But no, I don't know.
If you're gonna show your kid the original Ghostbusters with a blowjob joke, I feel like your kid can handle it.
True. That's true.
That's exactly right.
So I enjoyed it a lot. My audience clapped afterwards, which we always talk about is this kind of funny thing.
It's
but
ridiculous.
Like it's hard for me.
I've been moved to clapping.
I think it's very important for us to recognize that like the type of experience that Sophie or somebody else, other females can have with this film is like not one that we can necessarily relate to, but it's still something that I think we can really appreciate, especially like having a daughter like literally just turned 2 months old. Like I'm thinking of what she's going to see when she starts growing up. And I think like there's just so much to unpack with the backlash and like, all that aspect of it. And ultimately, like, there's even a lot of backlash just because it's a remake. And my thing, especially after seeing this, is like, and this is something I really evolved on over the years on this show. Like, you had your childhood. You have the things that are special to you. You know, if you're an adult-ass adult with a job and a family, like, you
should be playing Pokemon.
No, whatever. Like, still immerse yourself in that stuff, right? Because that's what we do. Like, we still immerse ourselves in the stuff that makes us happy. But you also need to be able to let it go. Like, I really think that's an important thing. Like, give it to the generation coming up. And even if you don't understand the thing they're doing with it, fucking who cares? Let it go and let it be somebody else's special thing that they can have when they're kids because you got that. Like, let someone else have it.
I mean, maybe I just haven't heard that much of the like. I've heard a lot of the like.
The butthurt is so.
I've heard a lot of the like men's rights nonsense type of backlash, but I didn't really. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are upset just because it's a remake, but it's like, guys, there's a million fucking remakes. Like, and maybe we just are a little more desensitized to the remake stuff because horror is like one of the biggest sort of problem areas. But like, hello, we're revisiting Star Wars, we're revisiting Star Trek, we're revisiting goddamn everything.
I think there's a large percentage of like older fans who never really got on board with the modern style of comedy, a lot of which is really like pioneered by guys like Feig and Judd Apatow, and has a lot of Kristen Wiig in it, and so I think if you were gonna do this, they would have wanted to see a film in the exact comedic style of those originals, and like that's just not a thing anymore. You know what I mean? It's not where comedy is.
Well, and I think it's important to point out, because I was on board with this movie since they announced it. So, but my one concern going into it was you see this sometimes, especially in superhero movies, and they redo superhero origins when they relaunch series, and it drives me nuts because we all know how Batman started, but yet we've seen Batman start a dozen times. So my biggest worry going into this, as far as remakes go, was they were going to retell the first movie. I don't want to see that, and they didn't. So great, I don't care.
So like
they kind of like weaved in and out of the story of the first movie in a way that I thought was really cool. It's kind of interesting. John mentioned the New York thing. Like this New York is, and we've talked about this before. I believe we started this conversation on our Chud show like 6-7 years ago. That like today's New York is not the New York of 1984 or when did Ghostbusters 2 come out in 86 or 88?
I think it was later than that. I think it might be
89. I think.
Yeah, 89.
Okay. But either way, like today's New York is different, right? The New York, at least portrayed in movies, is not as like, it's missing a little bit of that griminess. It's like a much cleaner movie overall.
A lot of the griminess, Mark.
So I mean, that's just an interesting thing. So that's changed, but I think it's changed for the better. I think that it's been. I think that it was just like, I don't think that it was totally retold. Like 1-to-1, but I think it was adapted very well. I think this was about as good of a job that you could have done with adapting it without like just totally retreading the original.
Let me talk New York City for a few minutes, and I know that some people probably don't want to hear this at all, but it's actually
shit, here we go.
It's super material, because like the first film is and the second film even more so, are very much like movies that are about New York.
The second film is all about the pulsating negative energy that exists.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, that's a good point.
So this film also is about New York, right? It's entirely set in New York. My biggest complaint, and I actually like we haven't even like talked about the movie that much.
I want to start getting into specifics of the movie.
But so like I will talk about it, just about the city of New York stuff. My concern was that it didn't feel quote unquote real, because they didn't sort of obey like the geography, right? Like there was the scene when they're going to the rock concert is like the easiest one to kind of point out. First of all, like I don't think that theater was actually a theater in New York, and if it was, like just from the outside I'm talking about. But then when they go to drive there, they're like, there's a scene with them driving on the FDR, but they're like going north, and then it's like they say, oh, but we're heading downtown. Like there's a lot of this, like it would have been very easy to just like make it feel more realistic. And it's like, if you know New York, you would know that it wasn't real.
It definitely doesn't luxuriate in the New Yorkiness as much as the early ones.
So to be fair, coming from me, from who's your boy, who's never been to New York City, I had no effect whatsoever.
The one joke that like, and again, maybe the I don't know if this plays outside of New York, but I loved that they took them to the like firehouse. And they were, because in the first one, it's all about like, oh, there's this broken down firehouse. You want to rent this for nothing? Yeah. And she's like, they take them to the firehouse, and they're like, oh, how much is this? She's like $21,000 a month or whatever it was, which is like probably low.
No,
honestly.
that
one actually did play well to Hoosiers.
Yeah. Well, and then she's just like, well, how do you feel about the smell of Chinese food? And it's just like, that's like what you could really afford on their budget.
Yeah.
That I thought was pretty smart.
We haven't even mentioned Chris Hemsworth, who puts on a pretty awesome comedic performance as the like bimbo male secretary, which is pretty funny.
And can I just say that when we're talking about movies that feel feminist or appeal to women without pandering to them, I thought, and I don't know if anyone else noticed this, and I have to give my sister credit because I think she knows before me, that they make a point later in the movie of Chris Hemsworth puts on the suit, and when they go to make him like more sexy, he takes the top of the suit off, but he still has a t-shirt on. Like they don't ever take his shirt off because that would be pandering. But they're like, he's wearing a white V-neck and glasses, so you're into it. But
It's
we
a-
don't need to make him half naked.
It's a great balance though too, right? Because it's not a sexless film, because like there's this hilarious running gag about how hot Kristen Wiig thinks he is, and it's not like it's not the point of the movie, and it doesn't distract her from what she's doing, but it's just a lot of these little hilarious sight gags of her just like being way into him.
The thing that sets the tone of that entire interaction is that when they first meet him, Kristen Wiig's like going crazy over him, and Melissa McCarthy, I think, was like looking at him like, him? Like, I just like couldn't see it. Because at that point he had already said so many things that were just like so fucking stupid that she was just
right,
like,
because he'd already opened his mouth.
she's like, I don't see it. I don't see it.
Which I think the funniest was when he first showed up and he rubbed his eyes through his glasses.
That actually, of all the just random sight gags in the movie, I think that may have gotten like just the biggest random laugh because people were just like not ready for it.
I liked when he was like, a fish tank is just a submarine for fish.
Well, and also he says the thing about something being really loud, and he just covers his eyes through his glasses like this, which is really fantastic.
Well, it was a good callback because he made a joke earlier when he was covering his eyes, like, I can't hear you, and then the phone was ringing before, and he's like, oh, I can't hear it.
So Eric's point about like a new generation of comedy too, like pound for pound, this has way more jokes and gags in it than either of the original Ghostbusters movies.
Well, you can't not have joke density now. That's like you gotta.
Well, right, and
it's
so
certainly
that's
goofier.
It by its nature that just makes it feel like a different experience. Like this is kind of this is more of a comedy with Ghostbusters trappings than a Ghostbusters movie that is also funny. And I think maybe that doesn't resonate with some people, but I think I really enjoyed that because like part of the Ghostbusters thing that I really enjoy is like, living in Chicago and like seeing billboards with the huge Ghostbusters logos and like seeing it on cabs and seeing they like put Ecto Cooler back out and you can buy green fucking Twinkies now. Like just having, I really kind of liked, I liked that this functions as a comedy with like a Ghostbuster skin over it basically. But at the same time, I recognize that certain things like you don't really get an iconic bad guy with a backstory. You don't really get a ton of consequence from what's going on. And maybe it's because we've seen the same sort of progression before and we know how it's going to end. And I guess that was my only complaint, is that maybe it didn't really it didn't feel like it had a ton of consequence, but I think that's just the nature of it being more of a comedy than like just something like the original.
I think that makes it more palatable to mainstream audiences too. Like I think a modern mainstream audience understands a comedy with a little bit of spookiness better than what I would say is the opposite, which would be like Krampus, which is like a horror film that's funny. And like I was literally just talking to some friends recently who both finished Krampus, they're married, and they both started furiously texting me about how angry they were because how stupid this movie was. Because that just like, I was trying to explain to them, they're like, no, but it's funny. I'm like, yeah, it's like a horror. Anyway, so my point being, like, for whatever reason, I think like this is a lot more palatable to mainstream audiences.
Well, I think it's important to discuss too, though, like the comedy aspect of this, because it's a Paul Feig movie. Paul Feig is known for his comedies.
Feig,
he's
like
got a lot out with
cookie?
Melissa McCarthy. And he's not as formulaic as like Judd Apatow's gotten later in his career, but Paul Feig's comedies have a certain flavor to them, and they kind of blend together a little bit. I'm not saying it is a bad thing, but he's got a certain voice. He didn't have it here. It was different.
I still think that you're getting.
It's enough different though that it stands out. I think yes, there are some of it there. There's the joke density and stuff like that. But
I just think
it doesn't feel like every one of them.
You're still getting the riffs. Like that's what to me feels like those modern comedies where they just sat there and just riffed lines for like 20 minutes and they just picked one of them. Yeah.
Well, of all of the different like recurring jokes, the soup gag thing is the thing that seems most like it would be in any other movie that he's done, and that's absolutely not a complaint.
I just want a reasonable number of wontons.
But it's easy to go into this movie if you hadn't paid a whole lot of attention to it, looking at the trailer and stuff, to think this is going to be Bridesmaids with ghosts.
I also think if you don't like Bridesmaids and you don't know what funny things are, maybe you should reevaluate things.
I think so. So my biggest critique on this, and I haven't like thought about it a ton. It kind of ties into the fact the point that Eric was making originally, and we've talked a little bit about the lack of the central character, and I think it also touches on Mark, like you mentioned, it not feeling it like it has consequences. I think the other way you could say it is like it doesn't feel as weighty. So like the perfect example to me is the sequences with the mayor. Like that's one of my favorite scenes in the original. is like the back and forth with the mayor, and like the main antagonist in the original is the guy who works for, I guess, the Department of Energy or whatever, and is like trying to shut them down.
EPA.
Oh, it's the EPA. You're right.
Yeah.
I still think the guy in the second movie's better.
Oh, all right.
Really?
we can have that discussion later. But
totally. I spent an hour in my bedroom the other night talking to Fiorella LaGuardia.
I forgot about that.
Come
one. No,
on.
so they no, I mean, I think all of those, both of those things, like this, the lack of the main sort of the lack of the like iconic bad guy, and then this sort of way that it doesn't have that same kind of heft to it in some of the scenes, it does tie back to the fact that the script. To me, the biggest problem, it's not necessarily the script, it's that they could have gone longer. Like, to me, this was an hour and 45 minutes.
I don't know, man.
I
was pretty ready for it to kind of.
See,
I'm with John. I would have kept going.
I think they could have done more to flesh out the actual like antagonist. Not that we didn't like get who he was, but it just felt like that started to feel rushed for me at the end, and I think they could have let that go a little
and
more.
I'm guessing too there was, I don't know if one of you guys sent it out, or if I just found it floating around the internet. It's the thing about the dance sequence. So there's like a multi-million-dollar costing dance sequence that appears in the credits of this movie that was very much meant to be a part of the actual movie. And that to me kind of says that maybe there was more consequence in here, and like maybe this movie was bigger than it ended up being. Not that the dance sequence is indicative that there's consequence.
I'm not gonna lie, if that
there
full
are
dance
things in here that, like, you know, when you were talking about the original, you know, that sort of the dealings with the mayor, like you look at Cecily Strong's character in this, she's just like she's funny, but she's just a set piece. It's like not, you know, they basically get like escorted out of a restaurant and then that's it. You know, they're not like hauled off to jail. They're not
I mean,
in
literally,
any sort of trouble.
Literally in the second one, they're thrown in straitjackets and put in a mental institution.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm going to push back a little bit with the idea that okay, I will probably get lots of hate mail for this. I feel like since I just
From us or from
both of
listeners?
them, not from you guys, maybe people who are watching.
I'm already typing.
The idea that the bad guys, particularly in the second one, are super iconic because if you...
It's just Vigo. It's Vigo.
Granted, I didn't see that growing up, but I just watched it this week. And watching the second one, it feels like they had these two ideas that they liked, and they didn't really flesh out either of them, and then they just tied them together and decided like that's enough. And even in the first one, obviously Zool is the villain and we all know that, but I always forget that Zool appears as like a personified person until it happens in the movie.
You forget about Pat Benatar.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to push back just a little bit about the idea that the other ones had these super iconic villains that this one didn't.
Well, for the first one, I really think for the first one
we're giving them more weight than they.
I think that's fair. I also think for the first one, I'm thinking Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Sure.
Well,
absolutely.
I guess
which was the toy they put out, to be clear.
But they do this incredible thing here.
They
do this incredible thing here where they have like Macy's Day Parade balloon ghosts, and like that was friggin' genius. That was such a good idea. Makes no sense, but it's really a good idea.
Ghost fighting in this movie.
Awesome ghost fighting.
There really was, and I feel like we talked about this over email, but the idea that kind of tying into this idea that the human protagonist is this kind of just average Joe white guy. I thought it was really clever that the big fight scene you get at the end is them fighting the Ghostbusters logo that just looks really rotten and gross and scary.
Yeah.
I thought was a great idea.
I actually think, like, I almost would have made it. I loved the idea that they're resurrecting the ghosts of like old New York. So like literally like colonial people and like pilgrims come up. Like that's a great idea, and almost like they should almost lean into that more. And I would have made the giant Uncle Sam the like dude at the end. I don't know, because that was like maybe to me the coolest looking thing in the movie.
Well, it was cool. They had, you know, the Slimer thing going on, which I thought was kind of great.
It's
like,
just that I think that's it. It's not that there's not some cool iconic stuff. It's they're just like throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks at some point.
Again, like, not to harp on how shitty Independence Day was, but like, you know, one of the things that we talked about.
Go ahead and do that.
I'm gonna do it. Like, one of the things we talked about last week is like, with the exception of like, you know, random surprise butt cheeks, it was like so humorless, that movie. And like this movie you feel like they really lean into the like gleefulness of the nostalgia. This is like exactly what I was talking about last week. Like when you, if you're a person like us who has seen the Ghostbusters movies and you like, there's a lingering shot on a hot dog cart and it starts shaking and like shit's flying out of it. You're like, holy shit, Slimer's coming out of that hot dog cart, and he like bursts out, and like to me, they hit a lot of notes like that. And even with the cameos, which I don't know if it's like considered spoilers to go over the cameos, but like everybody's
they were all based. It's
They were
funny
incredible.
To me. It was funny to
everybody,
me that
everybody from the original shows up at some point, including Andy
Bill
Potts,
Murray gets
which
like
is
a
awesome.
full role. I mean, he
Yeah.
gets like several
Right.
lines,
Bill
and the rest of
Murray-
them, I felt
He gets a
almost
full
bad.
role, and he's the only person in the movie presumed dead, which I
Listen.
think is, I feel like was probably in his contract, was like, you can put me in the movie, but you have to
No,
kill
I
me.
actually think I
Concept, right?
literally think I read that somewhere. Bill Murray seemed a little tired. I don't know.
He's fucking old, dude.
Yeah.
dude, he's
All-
I
No,
mean,
no.
Dan
really old.
Aykroyd's cameo was like very stiff. My sister was like, to be fair, he's a legitimate
Oh.
crazy person, so they probably like
Dude.
just say these lines and then please.
No way.
leave.
I thought Aykroyd killed it. I thought Aykroyd was the best one, except maybe Sigourney Weaver. Like he's
I
like,
honestly didn't realize.
like
it
in the
was
middle
Aykroyd
of the
at first.
ghost like apocalypse, and he tells like that's one block further than I'm willing to go.
Was I the only one that thought for sure that they weren't going to include Ernie Hudson and started to
Yeah.
get a little bit upset?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my
His
god.
cameo was great.
Yeah.
And what? And
I
it
love
makes
Andy
his,
Potts' cameo though.
it makes his eventual
Yeah.
cameo even better, right? When he shows up, you're like, oh, thank God, because
I mean, and like, because Annie Potts is kind of the secret sauce of both of those first two movies. Like, she
Oh,
just
yeah.
kind of
Right.
adds the.
I was
the funny.
really a little bit. I won't say disappointed because I know the details of why he left the industry. I was sad that we didn't get a Rick Moranis
No,
cameo.
I'm very
Yeah,
upset about
that
it.
would have been
And-
really.
I mean, I found it interesting too. I know the story. They've been trying to make a third one forever, and it's really interesting that they don't just do this movie and say, oh, they're picking up the mantle of the old Ghostbusters, and like maybe you just put Dan Aykroyd in it because like he would do it because he's got to fund that crystal vodka bullshit, whatever.
There's no
But-
way, man.
But
you couldn't.
but no, but like I actually, what my point is, I actually really respect. They were like, you know what, like fuck it, like we're just gonna do it, like we're just gonna do it again and make it our own thing, and I think
Yeah.
that was the right choice by far in the situation that they were in.
And they did go with everybody, so you can't really fault them. They didn't like pick just Bill Murray and do with him. They got everybody in
Right.
there. It was cool. They gave the
Well,
nod where
and-
it needed to be.
as soon as they cut in the first 5 minutes that Harold Ramis bust, just like
Yes.
That was nice.
was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call this like an amazing movie. Like for me personally, anyway, I think that it's a totally decent comedy that can be a lot of fun, especially I think if you're watching it, with the right crowd or whatever. I just think that sometimes movies hit at moments that make them kind of more important than the sum of their parts, and like whether or not it's the greatest comedy of all time or whether or not it lives up to your particular childhood memories. At this point, I just think that's totally, it doesn't matter because
Well,
it has now become a very important thing that I think is actually in some respect going to be looked back on as like some type of watershed moment. And one more thing, Mark, sorry. Like one thing I keep hearing
He
is
just
like,
gave me the Sophie Shush finger. I know
One-
what that means.
one thing I keep hearing is like, oh, well, isn't it cheap to just like, isn't it better to give them their own thing to be in? And it's like, yeah, sure. And like, I think that will come, but also like, it's a really strong statement to take a thing that was all males and to make it female. Like in itself, I don't think that cheapens the message. I actually think that makes it a stronger, I think it gives it more meaning because it shows you like, it doesn't matter if it's male or female. Like,
Yeah.
this thing can
They're
still
just
be,
as capable.
this
and
thing
that-
can still
not
be
to say
special.
that was ever in doubt, but that proves.
I mean,
That's
maybe it
just-
was in
yeah.
doubt. Have you seen movies in the 80s?
That's true.
Well, I mean,
and I've seen the internet.
The other point too, like I obviously I can't speak to what it would be like to be a young girl seeing this Ghostbusters movie, but I can say like, everyone's digging into this like, oh, it's ruining my childhood, but which is just like a fucking meme, like no one really feels that way, and if you do, there's
yes, they do.
something fucking deeply wrong with you. I don't know, but something that I've been thinking about a lot, like I was reading an article last week and about how, well, if Ghostbusters parentheses 2016 ruined your childhood, you should really look back at how shitty Ghostbusters 2 was. And I kind of take offense to that because
I got
Ghostbusters
so mad.
2 is probably bad, but like in the age that I like, the age that I am, and the era of movies I was around for, I saw. You know, we talked about this a million times. I saw Freddy's Dead before I saw any of the other Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I saw Gremlins 2 before I saw the original Gremlins. I saw Ghostbusters 2 before I saw the original Ghostbusters. So to me, those movies are fucking terrible. Like if I go back now and watch them, they're terrible. But as a kid, those are the movies that made me get into all this shit that I'm in now. And I feel like when people are like, "Oh, it ruined my childhood," like,
but Mark,
I don't know, man. Like when you're a fucking kid and you watch a movie, it doesn't even really have to be that good.
Dude,
affect you.
You are 100% dead on. Do you know who hates Ghostbusters 2? People who were like young when they saw the first one and just old enough when they saw the second one to have like the rose-colored glasses gone. And like, yeah, sure, it's a little bit of a different movie, but it was also a different time. So like, you know, I was talking about this on Twitter this week. No, I got really come to this conclusion that like no movies from anybody's era are any better or worse than movies from any other era. Like they're different, but your level of attachment to something is really going to be tied back to like being at a young age where something is really going to imprint on your brain like that. You know what I mean? And like, I'm sorry, like you're never going to be 35 years old and feel the same whimsy the first time you saw Ghostbusters. And it's not because the movie is not as good. It's because you are not like 8 years old anymore, bro.
And you have a history, right? You're carrying a history of all the shit you've seen. It's true of music too, right? Like,
totally.
The music that people like is like heavily influenced by what they got exposed to when they were 10 and 12 years old. And guess what? It's because they didn't have anything else in their like repertoire. And now everything you approach, you bring all that shit with you, whether it's a movie or whether
and instead of being so negative about it, I really think like what we should be doing is like you know, embrace it and like cherish it and hand it over to the next generation and be like, you know what, I had my time, like here's this thing, like let it be special for you.
On that same note, and I think it's important to point out here, as a dad of a daughter, you know, you guys are dads of daughters, get a daughter.
I'm not. Just
you are a daughter.
I'm the only non-daughter, non-dad of daughter.
Yeah, you're sort of a daughter.
All these people talking about how this is killing their childhood. I say, who gives a shit if it's killing your childhood? There's a picture floating around out there that came out from the premiere of Kristen Wiig hanging out before the on the red carpet before the movie, high-fiving little girls. There's two little girls sitting there dressed up as Ghostbusters, and one of them's just looking at her with wide-eyed wonder. That's her fucking childhood. Let her have it. Who gives a shit?
Well,
they need that.
The one thing the collective like genre-consuming internet has not figured out yet is how to express the like, maybe this isn't for me sentiment, you know? Like if you are the type of person who looks at a Ghostbusters reboot with an all-female cast and says, I don't know, then like, okay. But there's also lots of people, male or female, that are like way fucking into it and very excited to see it no matter how it is. So like,
well, I mean, it all
box office, so there is obviously an audience for it.
It all comes back.
Let these little girls have these heroes that aren't Disney princesses. They need it.
I mean, Mark, that's a whole other like can of worms because now we're starting to talk about entitlement.
And let a little boy grow up to be a hunky doofy secretary, you know?
Like,
let a little boy grow up. I got, as soon as the review went up on BGH, someone tweeted at me and said he liked the review, and then tweeted at me and said, I took my 5-year-old son to this, and the whole way home, he couldn't decide which Ghostbuster he wanted to be more.
That's awesome.
Let little boys grow up wanting to be female Ghostbusters. That's a fucking badass thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, like at some point, Mark, we're starting to open the can of worms of like entitlement, which is honestly like the real issue behind a lot of this. And
there's a lot.
And we don't have enough time to get into that. But I think like.
Do we want to talk about Joe's postmodern Facebook
masterpiece
before or after we go to break?
Sophie's review on Facebook.
Go ahead. I was gonna say before we leave review, I would be remiss to say that I also think it's interesting that there were tones in this movie that Holtzman may or may not have been a lesbian, and I found that pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I was pretty convinced yes by the time it was over.
Yeah,
but they also didn't beat you over the head with it either. So
exactly. That's actually the ambiguity of not just the way, you know, one of the points that was brought up early on is that these characters were not like, there wasn't like bright arrows pointing like these are ladies the whole time they were in the movie. I think like having some like sexual ambiguity in there and having just ambiguity in general is what makes it a very relatable and like just a movie that I feel like the people who are all up in arms about would not even realize that like they're just not like beating you over the head with anything. It's just a movie with people in it.
Yeah, well,
Right.
exactly. Like their sexuality and sex lives like wasn't really important to
Yeah.
the movie.
Yep.
Period. Like, and that
Exactly.
was actually like one of the better parts of the whole thing.
So we posted Sophie's review on Facebook, and it was actually getting like a lot of traction, just people liking and sharing whatever. And we pushed it out to a little bit of a wider audience, and we started getting like some negative comments, like nothing too crazy, but just people being like, meh. And my favorite thing was like, you know, as people who listen to the show know, like Joe handles all our social media, and we're all very hands off with it because he's just proved like he knows what to do better
And he
than
does
anyone.
a great job.
So Joe just starts like, I can't even describe, like, I really wonder how would someone would read this if they don't know Joe. But like, you know, if you listen to the show,
Well, it also is
you
coming
know
through
him.
just as bloody good horror.
So yeah, and it just says bloody good horror, but he just writes like, so somebody wrote, they were just complaining about blah blah another remake, and Joe goes, I don't know, I don't think it compares to the book. And they wrote back, I haven't read the book, but you're right. The book is usually better. And I was just like, oh my god, dude, what is going on? But yeah, Joe's like, if you want some entertainment, go to our Facebook page and check out every one of Joe's comments to the people.
Read all of Joe's passive aggressive comments.
But they're not.
I'm
but if
sorry,
you don't
they're-
know
they're
Joe, I
not
feel
even
like
aggressive.
if you
They're
don't know
just
Joe, I
passive.
honestly think you'd think he was slow. Like that's
You
what
know,
I think a lot of
someone
times.
just said no, just someone said no, just no, and his response was, "That's what she said." Am I right, Greg? Yeah, I don't. I mean,
Or
like,
just
someone
just
said-
thanking somebody for a really negative comment.
Someone said this review is not okay. They said thanks for the feedback, Pat. We'll pass it along. I mean, I recognize some of these names. These are people, like some of them are like frequent listeners, and some of them are.
I also choose to believe the person who said this review is not okay meant this is the best review I've ever read on Bloody Good Horror, and I'm so happy with it. Is
This
that not how
review is
everyone
not
else read it?
okay because I cannot
It's
handle how
not
awesome
just
it is.
okay, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's exquisite.
I got you.
All right,
That's possible.
Sorry, no dot. Someone commented no dot JPEG, and Joe said 415 unsupported media type. One more.
Oh,
Sorry,
Joe.
too good. My issue had nothing to do with the female cast, but just the fact that there is yet another remake reboot. Why can't there be original movies? To which Joe replied, "Couldn't agree more. I refuse to see The Secret Life of Pets for the same reason." I wish he was here because
Just like, you know, have a sense of humor.
I mean,
folks.
we also, you know, like it sparked a conversation among all of our writers about the days where we allowed comments on our website. And like, I think that this is kind of the perfect way to deal with this shit, because I would not have wanted to jump into a conversation in 2007 BGH comment section, which was a fucking mess.
Yeah.
We used to approve.
I mean,
a lot of
it was like
comments.
three
There was a
quarters.
time where we did that.
It was
too.
like 3/4 spam anyway. That's why we had to start approving comments. We really gotta move along here, Mark. Movieguide.org is a site for tight asses who want to know what kind of
I'm
content.
very curious with it. They like. Is it going to be that women were allowed to like work without a male overseer?
Let's bang through this quick.
All right. Movieguide.org is a website, and if you don't know what it is, listen to all of the rest of our episodes. Ghostbusters features a strong occult worldview, mitigated by moral elements promoting helping others rather than seeking one's own glory. About 32 to 40 obscenities and profanities, cartoon-style violence and action throughout, as well as mostly mild scares, played mostly for laughs, including scary ghosts during a Thanksgiving Day parade sequence, some slapstick comedy, property destruction, characters banged and tossed. Excuse me. Ghosts and spirits wreak havoc, and a giant evil spirit knocks down buildings and tosses cars, but no one is shown being seriously injured. Some sexual innuendos and banter, mostly surrounding the female Ghostbusters making lustful wisecracks about their hunky male secretary. A proposed logo for female Ghostbusters with a ghost featuring big cleavage, which was a pretty funny
That
joke.
was a great joke. That was really good.
2 photos of upper male nudity and some female cleavage, some beer drinking, no smoking or drugs, and stealing vandalism while referring to a girl who murdered her family. A man says God makes no mistakes, but he may have been drinking when he made the daughter. And that's it.
That's it?
Movieguide.org.
Nothing about lady empowerment?
What did they give it? What was its score? Was it like a +7 on their scale or whatever? They have a fucked up scale.
-2, extreme caution.
Mark,
man.
when you were out, Mark, I discovered I didn't realize that they write after that part. They have full on reviews.
Yeah, great subtitle. We ain't afraid no ghosts, but your children may be.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I do think this movie had some moments that were minorly creepy, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
Really great slime in this movie too. Great slime situation.
All right, guys, that's gonna do it for Bustin' Ghosts. Let's take a quick break.
Wait, are we gonna do the recommendations? Is anyone?
Oh, god damn it, Mark. Do you recommend it?
Yeah, totally.
Sophie?
Yeah.
I genuinely couldn't recommend it more.
Casey,
Yes, go see it.
John,
Yes.
myself, yes. All right, guys, let's do fan mail.
Chud, check your basement and your bathroom. Keep off the street and try to hide. But remember, the dark is their place. The night is their time. And tomorrow, the only things living in the city of New York will be Chud. Chud. Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers. Chud. They're not staying down there anymore.
This is Jason Mewes, and you're listening to BloodyGoodHorror.com. Yes.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. Back to talk about fan mail. Mark, that's mail that our fans send us, in case you were wondering. info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. First up, someone's name, who I don't have. Holidays is now on Netflix and really would love to hear your opinion and have the lady casters on the show too. Have anybody heard of this Holidays thing?
No.
I never noticed women's stuff in movies, but as a lady, I don't know how to feel about this show, Holidays. I don't know if it's a movie or show, actually. Thanks for being Thanks for being an outlet for horror discussion and being deeper than that was so gory. Love hearing your opinions. Sent from my phone, also, which I always like to point out. Yep, info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. We're also on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. Mark, also, please do not forget to check classics. There was a couple good ones in there.
John, do not forget to check them while I'm reading these.
Wait, stand by. I have an email.
Oh, I thought you were going to be like, stand by, not recording, start over.
Hey guys, Aussie Andy. Just tuning into the live cast of the show, I wanted to say this last night with my girlfriend and I saw this last night with my girlfriend and her 10-year-old daughter, who at the age of 10 has seen the original, and she thought it was the best movie she has seen in ages. She talked the whole drive home about how much she loved the movie, and I wonder if it was partly due to the fact that the main characters were women. I thought it was a good and fun movie and loved the cameos from the original cast. The effects are great, the ghosts look great, and I thought that Chris Hemsworth played a himbo very well. The lines in the movie
I like that.
The lines in the movie about people going online and ranting were great, and the references to the first film also awesome. That's from Aussie Andy. Let me just check info@BGH first. Yep. Jared, good day. I just wanted to say that I've been enjoying all the back episodes and now have a long list of films to see. It's great to hear the progression in the show. My partner recently began making a podcast, and now I'm aware of how much work is involved. It makes me appreciate how much you guys put into it every week for so many years, so I was more than happy to become a Patreoner. Thank you, sir. A few months ago, I was a horror amateur, but now I am a devotee. Thanks for the weekly dose of humor and info. Keep up the awesome work. Cheers to Jared. He told us it's just pronounced Jared over Twitter or something. There was one more quick one. Dustin, do you feel like being so ensconced in the film community for so long that it is blatantly transparent how full of shit the anti-Ghostbusters 2016 misogynists are? Every argument they employ having to do with the remakes, how Hollywood is only in it for the money. Every single one applies to multiple other movies. That's why the most generous interpretation of them is ignorance of the subject matter they claim expertise on. I bet each of you can name multiple remakes, reboots, sequels that apply to every single argument that they put up to deflect accusations of sexism. Anyway, I'm glad the movie is getting good reviews. I'm surprised that no one thought to connect it to the original by being in a parallel universe and having an OG member make an appearance through a dimensional gate of some kind. That's not bad, actually. I mean, here's
From the gate, perhaps.
Here is the news alert. All movies are literally made to make money, including the original Ghostbusters.
I was actually just gonna say everything is bullshit, but that's
I see
maybe
this,
a nicer way of saying
I see this
that.
in I see this same argument in video game circles a lot. Like, oh, they just made that to make money. It's like, yeah, bro, that's literally why every commercial thing is made.
That's the point.
What fucking parallel universe era were these people alive in? Where like, it's like Ninja Turtles movies just made to make money. What do you think the fucking Pizza Hut commercials with Ninja Turtles in them were meant to do? Like, what world do you live in?
Hostess pies with green slime.
Ninja Turtles rap.
If we're going to take this whole argument that people are only angry because it's a remake, we could have spent this entire podcast naming remakes that came out in the last 2 years. So that is a ridiculous argument.
It's silly.
Sophie
I
says,
can't believe they remade The Fly.
Sophie says, shh.
I think it is.
Exactly. Don't make me sass the audience.
It's a fair, like, I get why people say blank was only made to make money. It's usually them saying this movie isn't any good, because if the movie's good, then people don't care that it was made to make.
It was,
like,
but it still was.
It's really just a fun, like, there is this sort of weird thing. I mean, film is art, right? Like, and I think we believe that. It's why we watch a lot of movies. It's why we talk about them seriously, even when sometimes they don't deserve that. But some art is shitty. Some art, like, artists are people. That's the job. Like, that's their people. That's their job. They're trying to make money.
What is a person? So like, how does a person that is so concerned about films making money feel about a movie like The Force Awakens, right? Where they have preferred that it came out was really good and fucking nobody went and saw it, so they didn't make another movie.
I mean, that movie was the most made to make money, right? Like,
I also want to point out, to like avoid people who are angry responding this way, that I think that on this podcast we've talked about movies that feel like cash grabs, and I feel like where that line is for me is, obviously everyone who's making movies is doing it to make money, but I think there's a difference between the movies that are just made to make money and are totally joyless and are not fun, and you can tell nobody involved had fun, and this was not one of those movies.
Yeah, well, and when you can tell when something's been like over manipulated by a studio, when like the like creator's voice has been pulled out. Sure, there's a million ways you can evaluate those things.
Yeah.
Also, not for nothing, like I don't know that. I mean, people have been talking about remaking Ghostbusters for years and years and years and years. So you could actually kind of argue that the moment had already passed by the time it became a real movie. If you're looking, like, if you're going to be pissed about a movie made to just make money, look at like fucking Battleship, or like the Angry Birds movie, or like, a movie that's very clearly like, here is a property and also here is a movie with the same name as the, it's just like, just see, I got all riled up. I should have stuck with everything is bullshit.
Just to stick with the lady empowerment theme tonight, I'm gonna put this meme where somebody put Maz Kanata into the Golden Girls picture from Star Wars. It's pretty good.
You say that like you haven't put that in like 5 times. I thought you were gonna say they put her face in a Ghostbusters costume.
All right, Mark. Twitter me Timbers over here.
So there's a bunch of BGH classics, Mark. So tell me if you want. When
I already have them brought up.
Let's do those first. I like those. They lube up the works nicely.
They're pretty goddamn funny. Let me just switch over to.
Did you guys do the Bruce Campbell one before? Because
yes, we did.
Oh my god!
You guys, I think you guys did it on the show last week. No, I was here.
Yeah. So there's still there's 3, which is so BGH classics. If you're not familiar, if you've ever downloaded an old /classic episode from our website, or you're a Patreon member who's going back listening through some of our old episodes, which is probably more common, if you hear something you think is particularly funny, tweet it to us with the hashtag BGH Classics and tell us if there's room who said it, but definitely tell us what episode it's in,
with an S,
because it's helpful for other people to go back and just hear how fucking hilarious we've been for so long.
Classics with an S.
This first one is from HP Make Lovecraft. That is a fucking excellent. That is a very great.
Golf clap.
That's pretty good.
Stop saying Schwendeman. Eric after Schnarr says it like 78 times in episode 337.
I don't remember what it was about, but I totally remembered that after he tweeted it at us.
I don't even remember saying it
Like,
once, which is the weird thing.
It's just the word makes me uncomfortable, and you just
I
kept
also
saying
did
it.
not see that movie and was not on that episode, so I literally have no fucking idea.
Well,
what
it
that
was just Eric and Sophie and I. That was like the,
Oh, nice.
the craziest episode of all time.
Wasn't that that found footage MTV thing?
Yeah, the Gallows.
The Gallows,
Yeah.
the worst movie I've seen. Now that was a cash grab. That was not fun to watch.
Wendeman balls.
Man, if we keep doing this podcast for long enough, like BGH Classics is going to become a real game of Russian roulette to see like who you're going to get when you when you. I don't know why it had to be Russian roulette. I think I messed up.
I think the day that someone submits a BGH Classic quote of mine, I'm just going to drop the mic and I'll consider myself as successful.
There you go.
Sophie, you're an instant classic. All right. This next one from Third Breath with an additional H. Regarding people hating Beyonce's performance at the Super Bowl, I don't know what their problem is. I like a big ass. Joe.
Yeah, that sounds like Joe.
I have a very distinct memory of that because his delivery was stone cold. Like just, episode 365.
And then you try to call him out, and he's like, "My wife's Latina. I can say whatever I want."
Yeah.
This last one for the BGH Classics from franchise MPLS. Eric, if you were doing your job as well as when you were 11, you would have been fired by now. The Hatchet free episode.
I don't know what that's in reference to, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, but that's really funny.
I did, before we jump to the other ones, I want to give a quick shout out for Joe since he's not here. We've been saying nice things about him. If you want more Joe ridiculousness, my wife is now pretty obsessed with him and Evan's podcast.
I gotta listen to this.
About the Real Housewives. Yeah, I mean, I've heard a couple. It's funny because she was actually painting today, and I walked into the room and I heard Joe's voice, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Are you talking to Joe? Wait, so is it? Do you think if you don't know Joe, it's like funnier, or is it better? I mean, it's got to be better if you know Joe. She finds
it very amusing because they treat the source material very seriously.
Well, there's something really great too because like Evan and Joe could they're super opposites in just every facet of their lives, so like that's a really fun pairing. But they're also like the perfect pairing together.
Mm-hmm. No, Suzanne's a big fan, so they're doing something right over there. That's the Friends of the Real Housewives. I think it's called.
It's only a matter of time before we bring it into the BGH feed, and then nobody has to look for it.
I don't know, man. They might be bringing BGH into their feed.
I have no doubt they'll have more listeners than us in short
worldwide.
Order. All right, I'm just gonna blast my way through these. First one from Chupacabra07. Was Schnapps sitting behind Sophie during the Purge election year? # stop clapping, you racist.
Was somebody was clapping in your theater, Sophie? Somebody was clapping in your theater?
Oh, I'm remembering this now. Yes. There was like an awkward man behind me who I think clapped. Didn't we talk about this? When he got like excited, maybe when he felt nervous. But what happened is there were several scenes where the white supremacist group would do something and something very intense would happen and they would kind of clap their hands. And I was like, I don't know if you're clapping because you're nervous or you're clapping for white supremacy. And my theater was mostly not white people.
Was he also yelling "All Lives Matter" while he was clapping?
It was okay. Wait, actual point. There is a cupcake place near my house that my boyfriend just realized has a cake in their front window with a black stripe that has a blue line through it, and the cake says "All Lives Matter."
Wow.
Yeah, that sucks.
Thumb down.
Were the cupcakes good? Were they good cupcakes?
I don't know. I've never been there, and I'm definitely not going there now.
I think we can agree that all cakes matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
My sister today, we saw their truck, and she's like, "Oh, I can't believe they have chocolate cupcakes." And I was like, "All cupcakes matter, Hannah."
You know what?
Why not go with "All Lives Batter"? That's You
know what?
Guys,
I'm even gonna stick up for a
let me
fruitcake. I like a well-made fruitcake. I'm into that. It's okay.
Let me make your hashtags. Next one, also from Chupacabra07. Eric, when I was in middle school, I hired the bad kid in my class to steal a Pog Slammer from a girl.
Oh my god, that's amazing. This, of course, it goes back to my Pog shoplifting story from when I was a kid. It was like gold. It was sick.
Pogs. I don't think there's anything in this world that is cheaper to produce than a Pog.
Yeah. Oh, this cost 0.4 cents.
The Slammers though are fucking.
Oh yeah, that's some premium shit.
At one point, I had a pog that I really liked, and I had punched a hole in it, and I would wear it as a necklace, like with a rope.
Oh my god!
How have you never told that story before?
I don't know,
You
man.
buried
How
the lead. You really should have opened with that this week.
I don't know
That's
how
great.
often do pogs come up on the show?
Do you remember which
A
pog
lot,
it was? Could you
No,
remake
it was
for you to wear whenever
probably.
you podcast?
It might have been like a U.S. soccer one. I was also way into soccer when I was a kid.
I also feel
That
like
is
I
the
should mention that.
insanest thing I've ever heard.
I was a kid, dude. What do you want from me?
Eric, I'm gonna make you a U.S. women's soccer team pog slam.
I'm into
and
it.
you can-
I'm into it.
No, also
my
because
God.
I have the historical context to bring this up, and I love embarrassing you. You also wore a shoelace tied around your neck like a choker for like 2 years.
It was
But you-
Adidas. It was pretty sweet.
But you did not hang a pog from it, which would have made it
Pog.
perfect. Also, if someone
There's
photoshops-
definitely pictures of that somewhere.
someone photoshops the orphan poster with Eric the pog shoelace necklace, you'll be my favorite.
Oh man.
Christ.
If
Pogs.
someone photoshops that, we have to make it a T Public shirt. I'm pretty sure.
Oh my god.
Oh, man, really
That's
just dropped the
awesome.
box. Sorry, Adam.
For that t-shirt.
Next one, also from Chupacabra 7. I watched the first episode of Stranger Things on Netflix. Chupacabra approved. You should watch Stranger Things too.
Thanks, Chupacabra.
Okay, now on to actual questions. Stout 2 114, Stranger Double Feature, Labyrinth and Requiem for a Dream, or The Last Temptation of Christ and Antichrist.
Wow, those are both great combinations of
Yeah.
movies. I like that a lot.
Probably the first one.
I'm not kidding. There
The
was
first one's
probably a
weirder
time
for sure.
in high school where I would have watched those films at least within a day of each other, because I used to watch Labyrinth all the time, and I had a friend who was always like trying to get people to watch like edgy movies whenever they hung out.
I have
so.
seen Requiem for a Dream twice, and that might be about as much as I could handle it.
I think it's too many times, honestly.
I love it. It's a great film, but it's real rough.
Yeah, but it's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ellen
So,
Burstyn in that
there we
movie
go.
is just holy shit. Like, forget all the graphic things that happen. Ellen Burstyn in that movie is like just
Sad.
destroys your soul.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's rough.
I went through a really hardcore Jared Leto phase in high school.
Who didn't?
And
I
watched a lot of movies that he's in without really understanding what they were. And two of those were American Psycho and Requiem for a Dream, both of which ruined me for several days.
My So-Called Life. Hello. Was that
I mean, I owned the entire series on DVD.
good? It's a good call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jordan Catalano.
Next one. We got a lot to get through.
Never
Next
mind. The
one
rest of the
from-
show is me and Sophie talking about each individual episode of My So-Called Life.
All right. C. Jordan, where'd I go? C. Jordan Houston. What do you hope to see in Ghostbusters 2? I don't know, but whatever it is, it will ruin my childhood.
I would honestly like to see them try to make it a little spookier. That's probably not going to happen, but I think that could be fun, a fun element.
Actually, I guess at this point, if Ghostbusters 2 sucks, it will retroactively ruin my 30th birthday.
I would like them to.
I
you
would
know,
like
so
I would
this-
like to see Ghostbusters too. I would say that.
I think the sequel should be even more. Like, so if the second Ghostbusters was about like making New York or like changing New York's like sort of grumpiness, they should go like very extreme on the like, you know, anti-woman thing and like make it about like, you know, somehow use that as like the negative energies creating something they have to fight.
So,
I think
let's
just
There's like
realistically.
nothing but women in the movie,
There's
and
like-
toasters start
Yeah,
jumping.
that's what I was gonna say.
Mhm.
There's a movie coming out called No Men Allowed Past This Point. I think that's like it's a joke movie that's made to look like a documentary where the world has gotten to a place where women run everything and men are kind of kept in particular segments of
I think
society.
you're just talking
and so
about a Beyonce song.
if
Well, let's
Ghostbusters
look at-
2 comes out, I would like it to be a crossover of those two. So Ghostbusters 2 is literally only women and then Chris Hemsworth being super dumb.
Kristen Wiig's like,
But look
dude's
at this
butthurt.
realistically, though, because you figure it's going to be at least 2 years before we see a Ghostbusters 2. Thinking on the fast end, there's a big ass election coming in November that could change a lot of shit culturally. How could that
Uh-huh.
movie change?
Oh yeah, I mean Melania Trump has to be one of the villains in Ghostbusters.
Listen, it's all
You know,
about.
They should actually like do basically a remake of this one, but recast the Chris Hemsworth character as a woman.
Yeah. It's just all about men.
Just to fuck with people. Just replace all the men in the movie with women.
Word. What's next?
Sorry, I was distracted. Everybody's video dropped out on me.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
The next one is from Chiller Flicks. Do you think Kate McKinnon's role of Holtzman could also give her the skill to play Harley Quinn?
I was gonna say if she already has it.
I mean, honestly, I think Margot Robbie's like pretty inspired casting for that.
Yeah, I don't think Kate's dark enough. Kate is awesome. I don't think she's dark enough to pull off Harley Quinn. I don't think it'd fit. She's better off being funny.
I just saw Margot Robbie in something too. I was talking about on the show, that movie Whiskey Tango Foxtrot with Tina Fey. Margot Robbie's in that. She's really good.
Nice.
Oh, I was wondering if that was any good. I hadn't seen it.
I would check it out. Yeah.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
I've got that on deck too.
It's like sort of funny and a lot depressing, but it's good.
It's not as good as My So-Called Life, but it's up there.
I mean, what is?
Next one from Mr. Stoner 82. Was the book really that much better than the movie? Next one from Chase TX. Not a question, but I think this is the movie that spawned hashtag Get a Daughter.
It could be.
That's possible.
No, I don't remember. I think
Maybe we spawned it.
No,
Did you guys ever think of that?
Hashtag Get a Daughter was from Joe when Joe saw that PSA during the Super Bowl about throw like a girl.
Oh, that's right.
That's what started Get a Daughter.
All right, next one is from Mean Shadows. Anyone else, parentheses Joe, cringe at the awful fake metal band? Hate that they had to do this when there are hundreds of real bands to use.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
If you are a longtime listener of the show, one of my strange pet peeves in movies is like bands that are not actually bands. And this was, serious, especially with something like this, where you could have very easily taught, like, there's probably so many popular bands that grew up with Ghostbusters that would love to do it just to do it.
There's also a super awful continuity error where the band is like all dead laying in the ground, and then they cut back and they're playing and they're like celebrating.
That was very strange, I thought. But
Are you sure it's not a real band? I mean, I just have no idea.
Well,
Ozzy Osbourne.
If it is, someone should inform them that they're a parody of a real band.
Yeah, right. Someone should have the fucking worst. They're so bad that they appear to be a fake band.
Exactly.
All right, next one is from Capo Keys. Have any of you watched Stranger Things yet? Only a few episodes in, and it's amazing, like Super 8, but good. Ooh, I take offense to that. Super 8 was good.
Super 8 is really good.
Get the fuck out.
Listen, some people just can't enjoy good things, Mark.
Oh, really quick. It looks like it was actually a punk rock elementary school teacher, based on a story I found on the internet, who played that band in the movie. I don't know. I'll send you.
What does that mean? A punk rock elementary?
It was
school
they like found it was just like a fake group they found online or something. In any event, whatever. Move on. I'm sorry.
They were gonna tell me it was like a Make-A-Wish thing or something, and then I was gonna do it. Next one's from Gamingista, who in the BGH crew has seen Stranger Things. We've talked about this. Nerds of Gore. Thoughts on the Twitter attack towards Leslie Jones once Ghostbusters hit theaters? I mean, people are shitty, and people with the internet are even shittier. So
it was pretty disgusting.
It was pretty awful.
It sucks. I mean, it just sucks.
The guys, this like whatever the hell his name, Milos or whatever, is now off Twitter permanently, and I think it was pretty heavily related to that, right?
Yeah.
So, thanks Twitter. I mean, like it's like the embarrassing part, and like I use Twitter a fair bit, but like it is embarrassing how bad they are at like curbing any kind of abuse like that. I mean, that was like an extreme amount of abuse. Like you go through those tweets, it's fucking gross, and like the fact that they can't do anything about it is ridiculous. So I don't know, they should be ashamed. And like, okay, you kicked one person off, it's like there are literally millions of these people. So
yep. This is a good question. This is from franchise MPLS. What do you mean when you refer to a film as mumblecore?
It was like, honestly, it's a term that was kind of invented to talk about this specific genre of indie films that was starting to pop up that were highly improvised, and a lot of them happen to be early films of
the Dupli.
The Duplices. And so, like, and even
we
they
didn't
like
come up with it.
like
The
they
duplices.
they sort of helped create the subgenre and the term, and then started to, I think, themselves kind of shy away from it a lot. But yeah, it's like specifically refers to like this heavily improvised type
very
of comedy.
naturalistic.
Yeah, naturalistically shot,
Right.
that kind of thing.
All right,
Did you just Google that, John? Because I just read that definition.
Mostly
No.
we just joke about it to confuse Joe because it's funny.
All right, I'm gonna just blast through these. Cooley, 1979, another Stranger Things. So thanks. Seems like I should watch Stranger Things now that I'm looking through all these tweets.
Everyone should watch it.
So this one, Blue Daisy 90. I don't know if we really have the time for this, but I'm gonna read it anyways. Name 5 well-known actors most famous for their horror roles. Jack Nicholson was already famous, doesn't count.
Bruce Campbell.
I mean, Bruce Campbell.
Robert Englund.
Adrian Barbeau.
Adrian Barbeau.
Tiffany Shepard.
Kane Hodder.
Tiffany
Kane Hodder. Yeah, Kane Hodder is
He's
in
literally
the
not
Tiffany
famous for
Shepard.
anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how famous. Tony Todd feels famous to me, but he's not really famous.
I heard you looking for Candyman, bitch.
No, I would put Tony Todd
Todd's pretty famous.
on the more famous end.
I'm gonna take this moment to make a shameless humble brag that I know the guy that did all the costuming for the first Candyman, and I actually had dinner with him this weekend.
I mean, that's not really a humble brag so much as just like a brag.
It's like
Yeah, where
pretty cool.
where was the humble part? I missed
Yeah,
it.
he
walk
made my
around in a
stepmother's wedding
small-
dress.
You walk around with a small bag of bees.
He doesn't.
God, that movie's so funny.
Just so after dinner he can put them in his mouth and then slowly let them fly out.
Just let them all.
Just for effect.
Oh man,
That way he
only
doesn't have to leave a tip.
It's my most favorite bee-related movie.
All right,
Next to
let's
My
keep
Girl.
it. Keep it
Next
moving.
one is from. I can't see without his glasses. Next one is from P.S. Gauthier 1313. Ever think of doing an episode on a series, Stranger Things, perhaps?
Stranger Things is short enough that we could probably talk about a series, but I don't know, man.
We can barely see a movie
Yeah, it's
and
tough.
have everybody show up on time.
It's tough to
Myself
find.
included, so.
It's tough to find 90 minutes a week. So,
Might be good for a special event sometime.
or I don't know, an Instamatic maybe.
We just need to announce it like a year ahead of time so that we can, get caught up.
We might be able to work it into an Instamatic.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's kind of perfect for it.
Next one, B. Lassiter. Eric, can you please mansplain everything to Sophie? Can you please mansplain everything Sophie says during this episode?
I love mansplaining.
You have to then read my response to that. I feel like it's necessary.
Oh, I didn't see it. Hold on. Only if I'm allowed to sass/shush with reckless abandon. Yeah, the Sophie shush is like one of my favorite one of the favorite innovations of the BGH podcast.
I can't find the GIF. I had it saved and now I don't know where it is.
I know I wanted to attach it to my tweet, but I couldn't find it.
Speaking of
BC,
the RNC,
BC,
why? What?
BC made that so he could probably tweet it at us again.
Next one from B. Lassiter. Speaking of the RNC, why isn't Schnars in Cleveland tonight?
Yeah, I might make an appearance later in the week.
So
I want to
good.
see the big dog. Thursday.
Yeah,
He's
we're not
their other
messing.
celebrity guest next to Scott Baio.
He's not messing around with his Scott Baio, Ted Cruz bullshit. He
John
wants
was
the
wearing Donald
Donald.
Trump socks before it was cool. Next one, 40 Ounce Heroes. What's your take on the rumors of The Woods being a spiritual sequel to the Blair Witch Project?
I have not heard of any of this thing
Is
he's
it like
talking about.
Yeah,
it's
The
going to
Woods
be
is,
more spiritual, or it's a never mind.
Oh, I see where you're going. You were trying to make a spirit.
Yeah.
Remind me. It's somebody that.
It's
like,
Ben
question
Wheatley.
mark?
Isn't it Ben Wheatley?
What?
Ben-
No, it's
Oh.
Adam Wingard.
Oh yeah, Wayne.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
They're like
yeah,
the same in my head.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
I hadn't
mean-
heard that rumor.
There's been about 200 spiritual sequels to the Blair Witch Project. I don't know.
Including an actual sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't very spiritual.
Wow, that's true. Fair.
Next one, or we have two more. D. Jared. Where do you think horror genre trends will be 10 years from now? Found footage still, 90s nostalgia, homage, VR, cheers.
I mean, dude, 10 years from now, Jesus Christ, we're all going to be in like flying cars and living in virtual reality. How could I possibly predict what
They're
the
gonna
movie
be
trends are going to
remaking
be?
movies with CG versions of the original actors, which is probably something we've joked about before, but they like literally did that in the Terminator movie.
Listen,
so
I am
think that-
way, I am way into the idea of resurrecting dead actors. I think it's a great idea. I think we should do it. I think throw caution to the wind. Remember that
I
X-Files
cannot tell if
episode?
Eric is joking.
I know, way into it. Do you remember that X-Files episode with like Humphrey Bogart or whoever the hell that was? Do you remember that?
No.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Was it the
I mean, I believe you.
Or
that
no,
it
maybe
happened.
it was Tales from the Crypt. It might have been Tales from the Crypt.
They just did an SNL sketch about a CD that was all like dead singers singing current songs, and they were all holograms, but they were really glitchy.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
Pretty funny.
yeah. Tales from the Crypt did an episode with a fully CGI Humphrey Bogart.
I'm sure I saw it back in the day, but yeah.
Yeah, so that is our mark it down, July 20th, 2016. GH calls dig this up in 10 years when
Honestly,
there aren't even
I
real
just
actors and actresses in movies.
I just think that it's such an amazingly bizarre, surreal thing, and the possibilities are literally endless. Like,
Well, and they're definitely there's going to be VR horror. There's
put-
probably VR horror today.
like put Charlie Chaplin in a movie with Zac Efron and see what happens. I don't know.
There's definitely I was watching, I can't remember the name of the game, but there's like a VR zombie game, and there was a video, like the best thing about the VR videos, like you show like what the person's seeing, and then
Yeah.
you just see the person fucking flailing around and like I love it. So that's actually my answer, is that it's going to be split screens of people flailing around and also what they're seeing in here. Last one. B. Lasser, has Sophie seen Yoga Hosers? If so, what did she think? I don't know
I
why.
haven't.
Why
Sorry,
would
guys.
Sophie?
Is it even out yet?
Why would Sophie specifically have seen it? And no
Yeah, I
one
don't think
else?
it's out
Because
yet.
I'm an instant classic.
Oh, I see.
But I haven't. Sorry, guys.
She knows the guy who did the costumes on that movie.
Oh, they've made the little sausage, the little Nazi sausage monsters, and
What are they called?
No big deal.
Razzies.
Razzies, thank you.
Yeah, I was
Get
going
it?
with the long form version,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, the release date's listed as September 2nd, but it's got like a ton of reviews and stuff, so there's
That's
probably
It's doing the festival circuit.
yeah.
John Schnars,
Yes.
what do we got coming up the next couple weeks?
Next week, Lights Out. We actually have a review for this up on the site, so you can check it out there. But we will be talking about it next week. That's hitting theaters. There's a movie, Nerve. I think we're going to see either the 29th or we might bump it a week. So basically, after the next 2 weeks, we've got about 3 or 4 weeks that are open. And then we're going to have another sort of like headlong rush really through Halloween. There's a bunch of stuff.
I mean,
Yeah.
some of that will get moved around, I'm sure, but
Yeah, I mean, things are starting to get firmed up, it looks like. So
I feel like the August stuff always gets bumped. It's like, hey, we should squeeze this movie in August, and then like come July, they're like, just psych, and then it's
Well,
February all of a sudden.
And that's what happened. They actually moved a bunch of stuff out of August already, and now there's basically one movie at the very end of August, then 3 movies in September, including The Woods, which we were just talking about. There's an Underworld movie this year, which we have not discussed whether we'll see it, but I'm assuming Eric will force it on the rest of us.
Woof.
Bro, silver grenades.
Yeah, and then there's the Ouija 2.
Which I'm actually pretty interested in.
Yeah. Rings. There's 2 movies that are currently listed as Halloween movies. One is Rings, and the other is still listed as untitled Lionsgate horror film. So
It's Saw.
yeah,
I was gonna say we see about 10 of those a year.
I'm
don't we?
calling
Yeah.
it right now. It's Saw.
it's a Saw VR, and everyone's gonna see
Sawver.
it in the theater together.
Sawver.
So,
All
yeah.
right. Thank you for that. Also, if you want to get every single back episode of the show, visit patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. The other cool thing you can get is access to this live streaming video. As soon as it's up, you can watch it live and tweet questions at us.
If you
quite
want to
amazing.
see John,
And you also
Yeah.
get some cool goodies if you join at a certain level. So
if you want to see John get mad at me for being late every week, it's a good time to tune in. Also
Yeah.
a good time if you want to see us talk about Bill Pullman fan sites.
Yeah.
Which I really
Pullman.
it's Pull Billman or Pill Bullman.
Phil
Bill
Pullman.
Pullman. Bull Pillman.
Yeah, Bull Pillman, that's what it was. Anyway, Patreon, check us out there. Good times. That's going to do it for this episode of Bloody Good Horror. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
Adios.
See yous.
Keep it sleazy.
Bye-bye.